I'm Eric Malin. I'm the Executive Director of DukeEngage and the Assistant Vice Provost for Civic Engagement, and we're here today to talk to parents and families about the DukeEngage program. We start with the DukeEngage mission statement, and this has been the mission statement of the program since the very beginning of the program in 2007. And the mission statement touches really on three of the main goals of the program. The first is obviously to educate undergraduates, and the program has that main goal. Two other very important goals have been to have an impact on the community partners that we're serving, both in the United States and abroad, and also to influence Duke University, to have our students at some level embrace civic engagement and bring what they're learning through civic engagement to the East-West bus, to the dormitories, to the dining halls, and to their conversations that they're having with their peers. The program was founded while President Richard Broadhead was leading Duke University, and he made the important statement that this is not curricula, this is not mission work, this is education. And so it's always been our goal that DukeEngage, even though it's not for academic credit, that DukeEngage would be part of the central educational mission of the university. President Price, who recently spoke at the DukeEngage Academy, echoed what President Broadhead said and said that you will learn things in your DukeEngage experiences that can never be taught in the classroom. And though DukeEngage has never been, the goal has never been to replace what happens in the classroom, it's very much been the goal to supplement and add on to the educational experience within the class. We have some fundamental values that have guided us in the creation of DukeEngage from the very beginning of the program. We believe in immersive civic engagement, and when I think about immersion, I think about students smelling a place, feeling a place, tasting the foods of a place, but as much as possible, deeply embedding themselves in the communities where they're living and working. We believe fundamentally in community-driven service, and so that the service that our students are doing should be initiated by the communities that we're working with and should be asked for by the communities that we're working with. We don't pretend to go into communities that we don't know very well and suggest to them how we think things should be done. We value partnership and reciprocity. That is that we have always believed, and our data strongly suggests, that the impact of DukeEngage is reciprocal, that our students are learning deeply and that the community partners and the populations that our students are working with are also learning and being aided by the program. Urge that our students go into their programs with a deep sense of humility, that they're not going to save the world in 8 to 10 weeks, but that they're going to have some impact, and that they can have that impact best by going into communities with a great deal of humility, wanting to learn, wanting to soak up the experience as much as possible. And finally, we believe in critical thinking and reflection. We know from our experience, and we also know from academic studies, that reflecting on civic engagement experiences, having time set aside for students to talk about what they've done, actually deepens the learning and expands the impact that it has on our students. The program is relatively simple in its structure. We fund over 400 students every summer who do an 8 to 10 week immersive summer of service in partnership with the United States or international community. There are 2 different tracks that students can pursue in DukeEngage. The first is to take part in one of our approximately 40 group programs, a third of which are in the United States and 2/3 of which are abroad. We also fund about 40 independent projects a year. So then rather than going with a group of Duke students with a Duke faculty member, students go out into the world on their own with as many as 3 others. So 3 students can apply to 1 independent project. And we fund, as I said, about 40 of those a year. It's important for us to also mention that DukeEngage is a very popular program and it's highly selective. And so we receive approximately 900 applications every year for the over 400 spots that we have. If students don't get in the first time, we urge them to apply again. We find in looking at our data that eventually students who want to do DukeEngage get to do it. It's hard for me to imagine that there's a civic theme that Duke students couldn't find in the DukeEngage program, and so we really touch on the broad range of civic activities that students can do. And we have a very broad definition from arts. A lot of our programs focus on children and youth services and education, but we also have programs in innovation and entrepreneurship, public policy, women's advocacy, and empowerment. So students should think deeply about what they care about, what kinds of skills they want to share with communities, and what kind of skills they want to gain in the experience in thinking about the programs that they apply to. Any student in good standing who has completed 2 semesters at Duke and who will spend at least 1 semester back on campus can participate in DukeEngage. We structure it in that way because, as I said earlier, we want students to bring their DukeEngage experience back to the dormitory, back to their classrooms, back to their student clubs, and so we don't fund students who are not coming back to campus. Over the last 12 years, 25% of students do DukeEngage after their first year, 50% do it after their sophomore year, and 25% after their junior year. There's no right time to do it. I think students know for themselves when the best time is when it fits into both their curricular and co-curricular pathways. There are a variety of ways that students can learn about DukeEngage. They are learning about DukeEngage even as high school students when the admissions office is visiting high schools. But we have a very active social media presence. We have a launch of all of our programs of October 1st every year. So that's when students can look on our website and see which programs will be offered for the following summer. We have a how to apply session. We have program-specific meetings during DukeEngage month, which takes place mostly in October. So every evening, 4 or 5 programs are presenting with the faculty director, with the students who have participated in the program. We have student mentors who are willing to advise students, and we have drop-in advising sessions. So there's really no shortage of ways for students to find out. Our website has rich descriptions of each of our programs, details about each one. You can search by program theme, and you can search by other attributes of the program. One thing I know parents are particularly interested, I'd like to believe that students are too, is in health and safety of our students, and we take that very seriously. We carry a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week emergency telephone in the time that our students are in the field. We have a contract with International SOS, which is a consulting firm that helps us get medical assistance if students need medical assistance, or even evacuate students in the very unlikely event that that would be necessary. As you can see from this particular slide, we have a DukeEngage emergency card that all students and parents receive, and so we're very easy to reach if that were necessary. Our data suggests that our program alumni incorporate DukeEngage into their academic paths and research, into their majors, into their minors, into their certificates. We know from alumni surveys that DukeEngage students incorporate what they've learned in DukeEngage into their careers, whether they're doing a civic engagement career or not. They can be doing Teach for America. They can be doing Google, Apple, Amazon. It's our hope always that students will bring the civic ethos of DukeEngage with them. One detail I should mention is that we fully fund these projects. Students doing independent projects are funded based on the cost of living in their host community, so those are variable across the 40 independent projects. And in our group programs, all program-related expenses are covered for group programs. They include travel, meals, accommodations, vaccinations, visas, and incidentals. It's also important to know, and I think parents should know this, though there is no cost to students to participate, it is not a free program. And in fact, the program relies on philanthropy to provide summer experiences to Duke undergraduates, and we're always reaching out to Duke alumni and parents who have historically been very generous in supporting DukeEngage. As parents, we encourage you to Tell your student to apply to a program based on the theme and content, not on the location. It should really be something that resonates intellectually for the student. As the father of a 25-year-old and 22-year-old, I know that sometimes this advice falls on deaf ears, but students should not wait until the last minute to apply for a program. You can say that until you're blue in the face, but I encourage you to say it repeatedly. We've heard many stories from students applying to DukeEngage that a technological glitch at the end prevented them from getting their application in on time. We urge parents not to manage the experience or the process for the students. We think this is a growth experience for your child, and so the application should come from them, the impetus for doing DukeEngage should come from them, and the joy of getting in or the disappointment of not getting in should be your student's experience, not yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malin. Now, let's tackle some of the common questions that parents have. I know that you've gone over some of these things before, but I think it's important to continue to go over them. The first question we have is, should my student be going and doing an internship instead?
We get that question a lot from parents, and my answer to that is it certainly depends on the student, but in general, I think that this generation of students feels too much pressure to do the pre-professional internship and doesn't see DukeEngage as necessarily contributing to what they want to do in the future. We know from the experiences of our students, we know from what we hear from potential employers, we know from what we hear from medical schools, law schools, business schools, that they want students who've had this kind of experience. They want students who have had to work in teams. They want students who have had to confront obstacles and overcome them. They want students who have experienced different cultures. So from an instrumental sense, if the question is, I want my child to get a job, what should they do? I think DukeEngage can be just as valuable as any other kind of more traditional internship experience.
It's a highly competitive program. What can I do to help my student get accepted?
There's virtually nothing you can do or a parent can do to help your child get accepted other than provide the support and encouragement that all parents do for their children. I think that it's important that students know that this is a highly selective program. And but I don't think it's a particularly good idea for parents to remind their students that the application is due or write the application for them. One of the goals of DukeEngage, both from the time students learn about a program to the time that they participate in a program, is that they develop independence, that they develop a sense of agency. And if a parent is over-involved in that process, that doesn't happen as strongly as we would like. I also, as I said earlier in the overview, I'm telling you what's ideal. I'm a parent of a junior in college right now, and I probably participate in some things for him way too much. I know that, so as much as you can restrain yourself, I think it's doing a service to your child.
How should students choose which programs to apply to?
There are so many different project themes, so many different kinds of experiences that students can have in DukeEngage. So you can live, for example, you can live in a dormitory in New York City, or you can live in a homestay in Togo, West Africa, and take bucket showers. And the range of experiences that students can have with DukeEngage there. So first you have to think about what you're comfortable with. And what I urge students to do in that particular part of the decision is to try to take themselves slightly or even more than slightly outside of their comfort zone, right? Not everybody is up for a homestay in Togo. But I think students should push themselves a little bit. And the most important thing, though, in addition to the living situation, whether they want to do a homestay or not, is what the program is about. Well, and a student should then be thinking about what they care about in the world, what issue particularly motivates them, what academic study has been compelling to them, what they think they want to do in their future. And that's, I think, the most important consideration that students should have in terms of how they choose a program.
What if my student isn't an experienced traveler? Should I worry?
First of all, we take care of so many of the details for travel. So we book tickets for all students. And so all students in that case do is approve their itineraries. We process visas if students need visas. We connect students and require that students go to student health if vaccination and medication is required for their particular DukeEngage experience. So I don't think there's a lot to worry about, but I do know that parents worry. If there's a particular issue that you as a parent are concerned about, we welcome you reaching out to the DukeEngage staff so that we can answer questions about what a student's experience will be. And one of the things that often happens during the summer, it happens at least a few times every summer, is a parent will call us sometimes on the emergency phone and say, "I haven't heard from my daughter in a week," and it's never been the case that the daughter was missing. It's always been the case that the daughter at that particular week decided not to respond to texts and calls from their parents. So keep that in mind if worry begins to set in. And the other thing I would say is we monitor the world really, really closely. Another role that I have at Duke is I chair the Global Travel Advisory Committee, which decides where undergraduates may or may not travel. So if something is happening somewhere, if there's some social unrest, if there's a medical issue, we know and we can respond quickly, and we have historically. So trust us.
Will my student be safe?
Absolutely. And I am very, very proud of the track record that DukeEngage has around health and safety. It's our number one priority, and every decision that we make has that at the top of the list in terms of how will this impact the health and safety of our students who are in the field.
Can I visit my student during DukeEngage?
We prefer that parents not visit their students during the DukeEngage. We want our students to be fully engaged 40 hours a week for the 8 to 10 weeks that they're in the field. And we find that parent visits can sometimes disrupt that rhythm. So we prefer that you wait for your student to come home before you spend time with them over the summer.
Lastly, why didn't my student get accepted?
We get that question often in DukeEngage, and the primary reason is because DukeEngage is a highly selective program, and we're getting 900 applications for the over 400 spots that we have. The other thing to think about is that everybody who's applying to DukeEngage has already gotten into Duke University. They are the 3,200 of the over 32,000 people who apply, and so they're exceptional young people. And when we've surveyed our program directors and said, if you could accept an unlimited number of students to the program, how many would you accept? The answer has been nearly 90% of the students. So it's nothing personal. And what it means in many cases is that our program directors who are taking students into the field know the particular skills that they need and are also shaping a team. And so since so many of our projects are students are working for the same organization, you may need some introverts, you may need some extroverts, you may need some teachers, you may need some organizers, you may need certain language skills, and you may not need everybody in the program to have those language skills. So those are the kinds of things that it's hard for students to see and hard for students to know. I think that they can ask their program directors during information sessions, what are you looking for? As a way of getting a sense of whether they have a good chance of getting into the program or not. But it's often forces beyond a student's control that might impact whether they get in that particular program and that particular year that they're applying to the program. If they don't get in, encourage them to apply again, and eventually it would certainly be my hope that if their dream is to do DukeEngage, that they will get to do it.